I think I've been writing this book for the last 50 years. Atlantic City, where I grew up, was a dying town, a dying resort town. So in the winter, we could get into bars. They would let us in at the age of like 13 or 14, but the pledging was brutal. They beat you with these lifeguard oars that were sawed down and shellacked, and they paddled you on the back of your thighs. It was that kind of thing. That you didn't do that. Why would anybody do that?
Right.
Which is an
Here,
interesting question, because why would you put yourself through it? I mean, you can't do it now. It's not so much like to write what you know, it's to write what you really care about, what you really energizes you, whatever that is. Oh, what
hello.
are you doing? Are we recording now?
We are recording. James Rahn's Full Moon Bop, just out, published now by Close to the Bone Publishing.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
a small press in the UK, and it's on Amazon. So that's where people can get the book.
The way that I met you was through the Rittenhouse Writers Group, which is a very prestigious writers group in Philadelphia that's been around since the 80s.
Been around. We're going into our 38th year. It may be the longest running independent fiction workshop in America, it's geared more towards literary fiction, as you know.
I think it's just been a fantastic group, a fantastic resource.
Thank you.
I've learned so much. You've been a
Thank
real
you.
mentor to me. It's just been a real highlight of my life, certainly of my writing life, but even just of my life in general, just because I've met so many wonderful people through
Yeah.
the group. Well, why don't we start with the inspiration for the book?
I think I've been writing this book for the last 50 years. I am very attracted to this whole idea of, you know, teenage boys separating from their parents, separating from their mothers. It's not original, but the second individuation, which is like the first individuation is toddlerhood. The second individuation is teenagers separating from their parents, and just finding the world, finding out what the world is on their own when they're tremendously energized. The hormones are vigorous. The hormones aren't raging; they're vigorous. You know,
Right.
I'm very attracted to that time in my life, and also in other people's lives. That time of separation, a time of another individuation. So
Because of all of those hormones and because you're almost an adult, you're starting to get that adult body, but you definitely are not there mentally, right? And emotionally.
right,
It's a very turbulent time. So
it's a
it
turbulent
is
time.
has a lot
And
of
so,
possibility for drama, for fiction, that's that kind of thing.
right, for invention,
Yeah.
self-creation, progressive self-creation, things like that. So I've written stories about, kids just getting into trouble and mischief, dangerous situations, with the idea of what is the meaning of being a man, living in a world without parental guidance,
Right.
without a paternal guidance, which I didn't have.
I think this is one of the things that you and I have always like really bonded over was that lack of a paternal figure, the lack of a father, lack of a father figure,
Lack of a pop.
lack of a pop. It's one of the things that I find most appealing about Full Moon Bop, but also just one of the things that we have talked about many times over the years in our conversations. Would you say that Full Moon Bop is an autobiographical novel?
I would say it's somewhat autobiographical. Some of the scenes are made up. Some of the scenes are hopefully efficiently exaggerated,
Right.
embellished, but it's based on various events that I experienced and was participated in when I was growing up in the degenerative honky-tonk town of Atlantic City.
But Full Moon Bop is not set in Atlantic City,
It's
right?
not set in Atlantic City. It's set in a moribund New Jersey shore town, but there's never a mention of Atlantic City in the book. The fact that the town is a bit invented has allowed me to give it a greater fictional status
Right.
in my mind, and allow me to free me up to be more imaginative, more inventive.
One of the things that has always just fascinated me, and I think it's fascinated you too, because like this is a big part of what you've written about, is this fraternity, the Bones fraternity.
Yeah,
So when I hear fraternity, I'm thinking the college Greek system, and this is obviously not that. I mean, it shares some elements, but it is much closer to what we would think of as a gang, especially like a gang from the 70s.
yeah,
When like I think of like the Warriors. Do you remember that book and that movie?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
great
yeah.
movie. Or the Wanderers. Like
Or the Wanderers,
I think
West
of
Side Story.
right. I think of that kind of gang, where it's like a really large, really well developed, with like hierarchies and really like kind of what a kid without a father is looking for, right? It has some of that structure and stability and
And
brotherhood.
family, and
Yeah,
family,
yeah. So
brotherhood, family. Yeah,
it's one of the key elements of this book, and I just find it fascinating.
yeah. It's interesting because there's not a whole lot of high school fraternities. Let me say that. So when people think of fraternities, like you're saying, they think of the Greek system and they think of college. But this was a particular, or this is a particular organization. It was intricately entwined with working class Atlantic City culture, and the group started like in 1907.
Wow.
And so the high school chapters died out, but there's still an alumni chapter. But the pledging was brutal.
The
You know,
hazing is similar to the college system, right?
right? But it wasn't considered hazing. It was just
Right.
like you were just brutalized. They beat you with these lifeguard oars that were sawed down and shellacked, and they paddled you on the back of your thighs, and some kids ended up going to the hospital. They would come up with all these, and then the whole thing of they would put that stuff like Bengay or heat on various sensitive areas of your
Right.
body. You'd have to do all sorts of weird chores and tasks, and you had to do it, or you would be blackballed. But if you got in, and then I mean, one of the attractions was you got the sweater, which is a black wool cardigan with a skull and crossbones patch, and the fraternity colors, which were red, green, and gray, and you had its beautiful black jacket. It was like the zenith of a boy in Atlantic City in terms of status.
Yeah.
Like the world like broke apart, in terms of people looking up to you, in terms of girls checking you out. If you made it into Bones, you were like a prince.
Wow.
Before that, I was a bit of a, I got good grades, but I was tired of doing well in school. So it's like, and I don't want to, and I didn't want to be with that crowd, that the goody good crowd. I wanted to be with all the bad people. So the
Right.
question is why? I wanted to just go down into like the demi-monde. I just wanted to just go down, self-destructive, doing terrible things. And that's what Full Moon Bop has got a bit of that. Bones, even today, it's got a crazy cachet in the town. You had connections all over the city, apart from just being in this group of young lunatics.
Was it something that the
Some of
community
the,
kind of tried to fight against or suppress,
Yeah,
or
no, some of the community tried to suppress it, and I think like in the early '60s, but fraternities in New Jersey were outlawed. High school
oh
fraternities
wow.
were outlawed. So Bones lost a certain, like, whatever their corporate status was, or whatever their legal status was. Now, I think the teachers knew about the group, and they were a little frightened, because like on Wednesdays, like 25 kids in the school would be walking around with their bone sweaters because the meeting was that night.
Right.
And there were stories like, that like the football coach said, you can either be in Bones or you can be on the football team. What do you want to do? And all the players walked out of the locker room and said, see you, Coach Boyd.
Wow.
But one experience one experience that I had, we were pledging. We called it boobing. It was called boobing, but it was pledging. So we broke into this place and did like a shack that had all the. We had to get the lifeguard oars, and you had to make your own oar and paint it and shellac it. And we broke into this shack in the salt marshes outside of Atlantic City, and the cops. It was in Margate actually, and the cops. We were running through the marshes. They were like, "Stop or we'll shoot." We kept running. They finally caught us, and they said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Well, we needed to get oars. We were looking, we took these oars and because you had to chop them in half, make them so you could swing." And they said, "What for what?" We said, "For bones." And the guy and then one of the cops goes, "I was in bones." And they let us go. They go, "Look, man, you shouldn't be doing it. Don't do it anymore." They were started laughing.
I'm guessing there was a lot of alcohol involved as well.
Not that much.
No? Okay.
No. There were other drugs that were involved though back in the day. It was the 60s.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, so Bones was moving. Actually, he was moving in from, it was a bit violent. Then it was moving into like there's like a hippie side that was coming over, hippie drug side that was coming over like in the time when I was there. When I was there.
And
So
that's kind of
anyway,
reflected in the novel as well, too.
it
That
is.
yeah.
It is. So I
So
realize that I'm ranting on about Bones, but it's
well, it is a big part of the novel. And it's just part of your life and part of the novel too that has always kind of fascinated me just because it is so different from anything that I that I experienced.
it was that kind of thing that you didn't do that. Why would anybody do that?
Right.
Which is an
Peer
interesting question because why would you put yourself through it? I mean, you can't do it now.
peer pressure is a powerful thing.
Yeah, no, and also the pursuit of status,
Yeah.
respect, nookie. You have to cut that out.
No, it's all wrapped up in there. It's all wrapped
It
up in there.
is.
It absolutely is.
It is.
Full Moon Bop is set in a time that's very different from ours now, like set in 1971, right?
The
Set
winter
at
of
a time,
1971.
so a time when parenting and just being a child, being a teenager is a very different experience. What do you see as like the biggest differences between parenting and being a kid then versus parenting being a kid
Well, I
now?
mean, there's not social interaction live. I mean, in person. This is a big difference. We used to go, hang out at the bars.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
Jersey had a drinking age of 18 for like even I think even when I was in high school, like
yeah.
the age was younger.
But see, Atlantic City, where I grew up, was a dying town, a dying resort town. So in the winter, we could get into bars. They would let us in at the age of like 13 or 14. You didn't even have to have. You could have a fake ID, or you didn't have an ID, and they go, "Are you 18?" And you go, "Yeah." And you could have the biggest baby face, and they would go, "All right, you can go in." Watching people constantly look at their phones when they're out and they're sitting around and they're in a waiting room for something, it drives me crazy. I can't
Yeah.
I can't believe that they're not reading a book, that they're not just sitting there and just being, that they have to look and the idea that how manipulated we all are by our phones, by just, how these companies are just Meta and everything, whatever. I mean, it just all these things are designed to just keep us looking at the phone, keep us on Facebook, keep us on Instagram,
Yeah.
keep us scrolling through. For me, I can't stand the manipulation. I'm older now, so you go like, well, back then, and I think every generation must say back then, we used to hang out and we used to do all
Right.
this. It wasn't necessarily fun and without tremendous anxiety.
Right. But there's something to be said for like learning to deal with things that aren't fun and that provoke tremendous anxiety, right? Like, and it really is a very different time and a very different world, even though like obviously we were both alive during a similar time,
I
in
think we were
uh,
both alive.
Yeah, it is very different. A lot has changed. I feel like you do a great job of just transporting the reader
Yeah.
into that different time, that different place, and bringing it alive.
One of the crucial things is, as you know, for your own, is the voice. How colloquial the voice is, how, the word, the usage of the words from those times, the vernacular. But, for all books, it's like you want a good voice.
Yeah.
You want that voice that's just like, hopefully you achieve that, and I think that I have in Full Moon Bop. The difficulty is, you have a 15-year-old narrator. You can't give the kid too much insight,
Right.
because then it's like, well, how can he know these things? This is too sophisticated. So I tried to be very careful about that. Then again, he can't get caught up in the madness, so he doesn't recognize some of the bad things that are going on to himself and to other people. He's got to have a bit of awareness and self-awareness, but he can't have too much.
The way that you do it with Billy, and I think is very smart, but also just makes sense, is like he does have that awareness because he's never fully like 2 feet in, right? He's always got a little bit of, he's not quite committed or quite sure that
Right.
this is the way he wants to go. So he's always kind of like, but like
Questioning.
he's questioning. He's got some doubts. He's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and so that then it makes sense for him to be kind of thinking about some of these decisions, or some of the, he might be thinking about them after they're made, after he's done the boneheaded thing.
Some
But
of the
he is
boneheaded
like,
decisions. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
often provoking chuckles. And I definitely had some good laughs with Full Moon Bop as well. Like it's
Uh,
there. I don't want it to sound like it's so, so serious. It's a gritty book, but there are definitely some good laughs in it as well.
yeah.
There are definitely some serious themes to the book, but also like just the wildness of it, the wildness of the experience. It's a wild ride, but also then the humorous elements to it, and I appreciated all of that. So
Thank you.
yeah, you said you've been writing it for 50 years, you've been thinking about it, but like the actual sitting down and like starting to think like this could be a book.
Yeah,
This is a book I want to write. When did that happen, and what was that
that
process
was
like
like
for you?
that was probably happened about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. I wanted to like coalesce this whole thing that's like really has captured my imagination for so many years, and I felt like I had now the skill, the understanding of how to put a narrative together, something cohesive,
Yep.
something that would matter, something that was an authentic representation of all like the things that I understand about writing now.
One of the things that I've always liked about our conversations over the years, and always appreciated about like talking to you and getting feedback from you, is that you definitely have a very psychologically driven mindset, right? And you've
Yeah.
done some psychological training, right?
Yeah. When I was
In Bellevue.
categorized as a dangerous lunatic,
Yeah.
no, I know there's an organization, of course, the Philadelphia Center of Psychoanalysis, which is like the main organization for all the shrinks in Philadelphia and Greater Philadelphia, so I went through the academic side of it, which is the non-clinical side, which doesn't mean that I can't use these skills to help in the workshop, and also to,
Right.
help other writers in terms of writer's block, or other things that are getting way of them being as productive as they can be. So I love Rittenhouse Writers Group. I think it's such a wonderful group of talented writers. To write something, let's just say authentic, decent, something you really care about, it takes a big commitment.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work to put something out there in the world that's decent. And is a testament to your own ability, and what you really care about. How you see the world, what your worldview is. I tell people in a workshop all the time. I said, if you want to finish the book, you want to finish your book, you have to work. You have to reach out and take it. You have to
Yeah.
take it. It's
Yeah.
very satisfying to be able to help people write better. You know, and by writing better is helping them to understand themselves better.
It certainly touched my life. Just like, yes, getting better as a writer, and that's a good thing. But it does get you becoming better as a writer. I think means learning, maybe not becoming better as a person, but learning more about yourself, right? Learning more about what this is that you're trying to do, what you're trying to communicate.
Right. I mean, what you ultimately really care about. It's not so much like to write what you know, it's to write what you really care about, what you really energizes you, whatever that is. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just fascinating to me. What's the motivation underneath? Which it can't exactly be ascertained,
right.
and that fascinates me.
Go out and buy yourself a copy of Full Moon Bop.
It's all and
You won't be disappointed.
it's on
Yeah,
Amazon.
on Amazon.
Kindle and paperback are on Amazon.
Excellent.
All right, thanks,
All
man.
right, man. Great talking to you all as always.